change is not going to come from inside there. That is not leadership. This is leadership.
Literally no one believes that climate change is going to wipe human beings off planet Earth. No one believes that. That's crazy talk.
This is the challenge of our collective lifetimes. The existential threat to human existence as we know it.
Poverty is causing a tremendous amount of environmental damage. So, if we could make people rich and make things better biologically, let's say, more sustainable, and actually the way to do the latter is to do the former. Make people rich as fast as you possibly can. Then they start to care. And then you say that to people, it's like resistance. It's like, oh, I see. You don't want people to be rich on a healthy planet. So what's up with you exactly, if that's bugging you? What's going on? Because that's a good goal. And all the smart environmentalists I've talked to, Lomborg is like at the pinnacle of that in many ways. They all come to that conclusion. And Marian Tupy as well. It's like, well, no, if you look at what happens, you educate women, birth rate plummets, and that'll actually be a problem in 100 years because there won't be enough people rather than too many. But that happens instantly, even in one generation, and so that's the solution to population control, assuming we needed that. And so that's in alignment with every feminist's goal. And then as you get people out of this slash and burn agricultural cycle, well, they start to be more efficient in their use of resources, and they're not living hand to mouth, and so you make people rich and they become environmentalists. It's like, okay, that isn't what we've been told, but that's how it works. I don't remember how many more percentage-wise trees there are in the Northern Hemisphere since 100 years ago, but it's like 40%. And then that's another thing that's really interesting is that, and that you don't hear much about, is that a huge chunk of the planet has greened over the last 20 years too. I think it's an area the size of the US. It's some staggering amount of land anyways, and that just never comes up. It's like, and the idea, I didn't know as well until about 6 or 7 years ago that we're in all likelihood going to peak at about 9 billion people, and then it's like that's going to plummet real fast, like really fast by all appearances. And so, and we can certainly sustain a population of 9 billion as far as I can tell without wreaking environmental havoc, especially as we get smarter technologically, and that's happening so fast that we can't even keep up with it. And this is so interesting too from an economic perspective when you're thinking about environmental policy. It's like these environmental breakthroughs did not come where we expected them to come. And you cite an MIT scientist on page 105. I wanted to read this because it's so unlikely. I think that's, I hope I've got it in the right place here. I won't read it. I'll just say it. He says, if you really wanted to decrease carbon in the atmosphere, you might want to accelerate the rate at which coal is being burned in India. So let's unpack that, because you think coal and India and lower carbon, what's that about?
That's Kerry Emanuel from MIT, and he points out that rising prosperity, coal-powered prosperity now will result in people choosing to have fewer kids, and therefore you'll have fewer people in the future producing more pollution. The specifics of how that works, I mean, that's basically the whole story, is that prosperity, we should view prosperity as essential to protecting the natural environment, in part because of declines of population, but also because we end up moving towards cleaner sources of energy.
Right, once you get away from wood, so wood's really bad. Then coal, well, coal's got a lot cleaner, way cleaner, as you point out in your book. And so that's a really good thing. And so, but coal isn't as good, let's say, as natural gas. And maybe natural gas isn't as good as nuclear. Now, who knows, because that's complicated, but it's a possibility. And so you want to get people away from wood as fast as possible. That's part of that getting away from zero too, right? In terms of economic growth, is when you're at a subsistence level, you don't have enough time to be making the future better. You're just trying to survive today. You can't get off the ground. And for the first time in human history, we could get everyone off the ground. No one would have to be at zero. Absolutely. You know, and to give the radical leftist types credit, at least hypothetically, they're concerned with all those people that are stuck at zero. Well, but the unexamined environmentalism is interfering with that in very complicated ways. And so we should have a bit of a chat about energy. It's like, okay, what's wealth that you want to deliver to poor people? Okay, what's wealth? Energy. Make energy cheap. There's
Yep.
no poor people. Why? Well, because work requires energy, and work
Right.
produces everything. And so if energy is dirt cheap, there aren't poor people. And so, do you not want to have no poor people? It's like cheap energy, man. That's your savior. And as you said, if we do this halfway intelligently, it's always also extremely good for the planet. So, well, but the whole system has to come down because I'm depressed. So, well, that's not a very good argument. And you know, that depression issue is interesting too, because I thought about depression technically in terms of hierarchy of values for a long time. So the serotonin system, when it becomes depleted, it takes less punishment to stop someone, an animal or a human being. And so you could imagine that if you're depressed, let's say, I don't know, you forget to pick something up for your wife, eh? And if you're not depressed, you think, oh, I forgot to pick something up for my wife. I shouldn't do that again, maybe apologize. But if you're depressed, you think, well, I forgot to pick up something for my wife. Only a selfish person would do that, so that's one level up. I think I do selfish things all the time. I'm a bad person, and people are not good, and the future's bleak. And then every single negative issue cascades up the entire hierarchy until it becomes apocalyptic. That's what happens in depression. You can't buttress yourself against punishment. Well, and anxiety as well, but technically, and that's low serotonin. That's partly why people hate to have their status challenged, because status, the higher you are in status, the better the serotonin system is at dampening the response to punishment, because it assumes the environment's safer. So those are all necessary things to know when you're thinking about your own thinking, you know. It's very easy to romanticize nature, especially if you're a city dweller who's never had to, you know, wander out in the northern woods in the middle of the summer and get eaten by black flies and mosquitoes, starving to death while trying to track down an animal. It's very easy to romanticize nature. Of course, cancer and other diseases tend to disabuse you of the pure beauty of nature. And nature is a very, very destructive force. It's against us all the time as well as for us. And another thing that's really not well balanced in our society is the anti-humanism that's become part and parcel of radical discussions everywhere. Human beings are regarded as a cancer on the planet, to quote the Club of Rome, worrying about the population explosion, and we're all guilty because we're destroying things as fast as we can possibly manage. It's like, Jesus, everything around us is always trying to kill us. Most of the time we're just trying to stay alive. I mean, we're not perfect, we're corrupt, and so are our social structures, and people get greedy and careless. But it's not like nature's all shining, wonderful young lady waiting in the wilderness to embrace us positively. It's the old hag that's going to kill you every possible way. And you need to defend yourself against that. And you know, human beings have only been in a position since 1960, since we ever had any conceptualization of our potential to change the planet on a planetary scale. It's been like 4 generations. You know, back in the 1890s, Thomas Huxley was commissioned by the English Parliament to investigate the carrying capacity of the oceans, and he was a great biologist. His report was that there were so damn many fish in the ocean that every human being could fish every day for the rest of his life and catch everything he possibly could, and we wouldn't put a dent in it. And that's, you know, that's only 120 years ago. We only woke up to the fact that we became a planetary force in 1960. It's like, what the hell do you expect from people? You know, we're trying to get ourselves together as fast as we can, and it might be decent of us to stop with the anti-human rhetoric, which is only going to lead to a bad end. You know, if human beings are nothing but a cancer on the planet, then it's the bloody hero who obliterates them, isn't it? Because it's the hero who gets rid of cancer. And when people watch the school shooters and the mass shooters, and they think, well, what is it that motivates people like that? Which they could figure out in about half an hour if they did the proper reading. You just read what they wrote. Human beings are a cancer on the planet. Being is evil intrinsically. I'm going to take out everything I can to show my displeasure with the structure of reality, and then I'm going to shoot myself just to show you how little I care. And if you can't understand that, then you haven't looked very deeply into your own heart, because there will be a time in your life, believe me, where something terrible enough happens to you so that you'll be able to understand that perfectly.